You ruined my marriage. Emily's words didn't just ring through the dining room, they slammed into me, knocking the air from my chest. Forks froze. Glasses stopped midair. The candles I'd lit for Sunday supper sputtered like they, too, were embarrassed to be here. My son, David, blinked as if waking from anesthesia, and the room tightened around us like a fist. Before I tell you how this night unraveled, and the secrets it dragged into the light, tell me in the comments, have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do in your own family? If this kind of real, raw story keeps you watching, please subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next chapter. I'd spent the afternoon doing what I do best, keeping a family stitched together in all the invisible ways women my age were taught to. The roast had cooled to a respectable warmth. The apple pie rested under a loose tent of foil. I'd polished the good silver, the set my mother left me, the one I only brought out when I wanted everything to feel right. Only now, under the steady glare of my daughter-in-law, I realize right had been replaced by wrong without my permission. Emily, I said carefully, I don't understand. Her laugh was a shard of glass. You always understand, Margaret. You're always 2 steps ahead, smiling that sweet, holy mother smile while you tell him what to think. David looked at me, my boy. 35 and still the same cowlick on the left then at his wife. What's going on? What's going on, Emily snapped, is that your mother set this up. Every comment, every suggestion, every helpful little nudge about finances, about the house, about when we should have a baby. She wants you close, so she can control you. She's been undermining me for months, David. The table flinched when she said it. Even the pie looked ashamed of itself. Sweetheart, I tried, feeling my own voice thin. I've only wanted you both to be happy. That's the point, she said. Your version of happy. I could feel my cheeks heating, the same way they did the day the school nurse called to say David had fallen from the monkey bars. It's a mother's reflex, blood races, breath shortens, and the body prepares to sprint toward calamity. I gave you the recipe you asked for. I watered your plants when you traveled, and I kept my opinions to myself. I paused, doubting my own memory even as I spoke. Mostly, she echoed, triumphant. Do you hear that, David? He cleared his throat, eyes darting to the roast like it could save him. Emily, Mom has always been involved. It's just how she is. Exactly, Emily said. It's how she is, and it's why this marriage is breaking. The word breaking hit me in the face. I thought of the crystal bowl my wedding gift to them shattered last winter when a shelf gave way. We had swept the glittering pieces into a dustpan while pretending it wasn't an omen. We should have known better. The things you ignore are the things that come back with teeth. Helen, my neighbor and oldest friend, sat halfway down the table, a guest of politeness more than desire. She reached her hand under the tablecloth and found my knee. A simple press, steady. Emily, she said gently, tonight might not be. Stay out of it, Emily cut in. This is between me and the woman who can't stop playing mother to a man who already has a wife. Silence. The kind that makes you hear clocks and refrigerators and your own heart. In that silence, a memory. The way David looked at me the day he introduced Emily. Mom, she's it. She's my future. I had believed him. I had believed her, the bright smile, the careful politeness, the way she called me Mom after the second Thanksgiving. I stood. 60 years of decorum demanded it. If I have overstepped, I'm sorry. Truly. I know I can be strong, but I would never ever want to come between you. Then why did you tell him we can't afford the new condo? Emily fired back. Why did you say I should wait before leaving my job? Why did you keep warning him about risky decisions like he's 12? David's eyes flickered. We can't afford the condo, Em. She rounded on him. Because she said so. Because numbers said so, I wanted to correct. Because I had run them with him at the kitchen counter while the coffee went cold, remembering what it was to pinch pennies and still smile. But I didn't say any of that. I stared at my son, at the worry lines his father never lived long enough to wear, and thought, you asked for my help. Helplessness is not a feeling I allow often. I folded it into a shape I could hide and pushed my voice through it. If you both need space from me, I'll give it. I can see that I've been present in ways that feel heavy. Oh, we're past space, Emily said. We're at consequences. Consequences? Helen murmured. hand tightening on my knee. Emily lifted her chin, lightning in her eyes. From now on, you don't speak to David about our money. You don't drop by. You don't accidentally advise. And you certainly don't pick out nurseries like you did last week. I blinked. I picked up a paint sample. You asked for it. I asked for your opinion, she said, and you gave me a plan. Across the table, Rachel, Emily's younger sister, kept her gaze pinned to her plate, cheeks flushed the color of the Merlot. She looked like a girl forced to watch a storm through a window she could not close. I reached for my water and found my hand shaking. In the glass I saw a woman I recognized and didn't. Silver hair too carefully curled, lipstick a little too brave, eyes that still believed problems could be solved by kindness. Then I'll step back, I said. You have my word. Emily's smile was quick and mean. We'll see if you can manage it. She sat, smoothed her napkin, and cut into the roast I'd trimmed with rosemary from my own garden, the same garden where, this morning, I had whispered a prayer for peace. As the first bite reached her mouth, the front door chimed. David frowned. Who's that? I didn't know, but the sound carried a chill, and somewhere under the table, Helen's hand left my knee. The night after Emily's accusation, I couldn't sleep. My house felt like a stage after the curtain had dropped, chairs pushed back, crumbs scattered, the echo of voices still buzzing in the air. Her words haunted me. You ruined my marriage. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, remembering the first time I ever saw her. It had been a summer afternoon 5 years ago. David had shown up at my door, grinning like a boy instead of the 30-year-old man he was. Behind him stood a young woman with glossy chestnut hair, a white sundress, and a smile so wide it could split the sky. Mom, this is Emily, he'd said, pride radiating off him. She's the one. The one. That's what he called her. And in that moment, she looked like the one. She extended her hand, warm and firm, and said, I've heard so much about you, Margaret. I remember how my heart fluttered. Mothers are greedy creatures when it comes to their children's happiness. We tuck away every worry, every sacrifice, waiting for proof it was worth it. Standing in that doorway, watching my sunbeam and this young woman smile, I thought, it was all worth it. The early months were a dream. Emily brought me flowers when she visited. She asked for recipes, leaned close while I showed her how to fold pie crust. She laughed at my old stories, laughed so sweetly, as if she truly admired me. On Christmas Eve, she gave me a scarf in my favorite shade of blue. Because you're the glue that holds everything together, she'd whispered. I wore that scarf every winter after. The wedding had been simple but beautiful. In the church's soft light, Emily glowed, her veil trailing like mist. When the priest pronounced them husband and wife, I pressed my hands together and prayed that the joy in David's eyes would never dim. Even Helen, who usually rolled her eyes at romance, squeezed my arm and said, She's a keeper, Margaret. You're lucky. And for a while it seemed true. Sunday dinners were filled with laughter. Emily told me about her job in marketing, her big dreams. David thrived in his engineering firm. They held hands at the table, whispered inside jokes, and teased me for fussing over dessert. But little things began to flicker at the edges. Subtle, almost invisible, like hairline cracks in porcelain. I'd call David, and Emily would answer with, He's busy right now, Margaret. Do you need something? Her voice polite but sharp, like a knife wrapped in velvet. Or I'd offer advice, just suggestions, and Emily's smile would tighten. Thank you, but we've got it covered. At first, I told myself it was the adjustment to marriage. Everyone needs time to settle into rhythms. But as the months passed, the warmth began to cool. Emily stopped asking for recipes. She hosted dinners at their condo but rarely invited me. When I did visit, she seemed to hover, correcting how I stacked dishes, how I folded towels. I remember one night, just a year into their marriage, David had come by alone, and we sat on the porch sipping iced tea. He was quieter than usual, staring at the stars. Something wrong, honey? I asked. He sighed. Emily thinks you're too involved. She feels like we don't get to make our own choices. I nearly dropped my glass. Too involved? David, I know, Mom, he said quickly, holding up a hand. I told her you mean well. But she's sensitive. Can you just give us a little more space? I swallowed my hurt and nodded. Of course. If that's what she wants. I tried. Truly, I did. But habits are stubborn companions. A lifetime of guiding, teaching, protecting it doesn't switch off like a light. When he asked me about finances, I gave him my honest opinion. When Emily mentioned baby names once, I lit up and shared stories of when I was pregnant with him. I thought I was connecting. She thought I was interfering. And so the cracks widened. The scarf she once gave me sat untouched in the closet. Calls became shorter, visits rarer. I told myself it was just modern marriage, busy lives. But sometimes, when I caught Emily's eyes across a room, I saw something harder, resentment, sharpened into something close to hatred. Now, lying awake after her public outburst, I realized the facade of family harmony had been nothing more than painted glass, beautiful to look at, fragile underneath. And when it shattered last night, every shard cut straight into me. I pressed my palms together, whispering a prayer into the darkness. Lord, if I've made mistakes, show me how to mend them. And if I'm being blamed unjustly, give me the strength to face what's coming. Because deep down, beneath the pain and confusion, one truth gnawed at me. Emily's rage wasn't just about meddling, it was about something bigger, darker, something she was desperate to hide. Morning sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, catching on the crystal sugar jar I had owned since my wedding day. The house was quiet, but my mind was anything but. Emily's words replayed in a loop. You ruined my marriage. I busied myself with coffee, pouring more than I could drink. My hands shook slightly as I reached for the mug. I thought of David as a boy, running through the backyard with scraped knees and wild laughter. How had we gone from scraped knees to accusations sharp enough to pierce bone? The truth is, the cracks had been showing long before last night. I just hadn't wanted to see them. It started with glances, those small, fleeting looks Emily gave me when I spoke. I'd be telling a story about David's childhood, maybe the time he built a treehouse that collapsed in a storm, and her eyes would dart sideways, lips pressed tight, like she was enduring something rather than sharing in it. At first, I brushed it off. Not everyone finds old family tales charming. Then came the question's thinly veiled barbs wrapped in casual tones. So, Margaret, did David always tell you everything when he was growing up? She asked one evening after dinner, her wine glass dangling in her hand. I laughed, thinking it was light-hearted. Oh, of course, he couldn't keep a secret to save his life. Her smile was sharp. Interesting. Or the time she asked, do you think you'll ever move? Maybe live a little farther away? She said it with a laugh, but her eyes were cold steel. I'd chuckle and change the subject, telling myself I was imagining the edge in her voice. But inside, unease coiled tighter with each passing week. The first real blow came one spring afternoon when I dropped by unannounced. I'd baked cinnamon rolls, David's favorite since childhood, and thought they'd be a nice surprise. I let myself in, humming, only to find Emily in the kitchen, her phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see me at first. Yes, I know she means well, she hissed. But she's suffocating us. David doesn't see it, but I do. She always has an opinion. Always. It's like we're living in her marriage, not ours. My chest tightened. I slipped quietly back outside, cinnamon rolls clutched against me like a shield. I sat in my car for nearly an hour before driving home, the sweet smell of icing turning bitter in my nose. I never told David about that. Maybe I should have. But mothers learn to bite their tongues long before their children learn to walk. After that, I tried harder to step back. I stopped calling as much. I let weeks pass before inviting them over. When David asked why, I just said I'd been busy with church or garden work. But the silence between us grew heavier. Then came the suggestions from Emily, requests disguised as boundaries. Could you not mention David's old girlfriends? It makes things awkward. Maybe don't tell him what you think about our savings account. We'll figure it out. Next time, just let us cook. You don't need to bring food every time you visit. Each one felt like a brick added to a wall I hadn't noticed being built. I'd nod, smile, and comply, while inside a storm brewed. David, sweet as always, seemed oblivious. He'd call me after work, chatting about his projects, his coworkers, and the house repairs. But if Emily was around, the calls were shorter, his tone clipped. Once, I overheard her in the background whispering, "Tell her you'll call later." That whisper cut deeper than any shouted word. The subtle cracks were turning into fractures, and I knew it. but I kept convincing myself they could be patched. After all, marriages are complicated. Adjustments take time. Emily just needed to feel secure. Still, a seed of doubt rooted itself in me. Was I really the problem? Had I crossed invisible lines I didn't even see? Or was Emily painting me as the villain to cover something else? The scarf she once gave me still hung in the closet, untouched. I ran my fingers over it that morning, remembering her words, "You're the glue that holds everything together." Now it felt like a cruel joke. I folded the scarf back into the shadows of the closet and whispered to the empty house, "If I'm breaking this family, God help me. But if she's hiding something, let the truth come out." The cracks were no longer silent. They were waiting to split wide open, and I had the sinking feeling last night's accusation was only the beginning. The following Sunday, David stopped by alone. The sight of him pulling into my driveway filled me with both relief and dread. I wanted to run into his arms, to demand an explanation, to beg him to tell me none of this was my fault. But when he walked through the door, I saw the weight in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes, and I knew he had come not as my son, but as a man torn in two. "Coffee?" I asked, because mothers offer comfort before questions. "Please," he said, sinking into the kitchen chair like a soldier returning from battle. His hands rubbed his temples. I set the cup in front of him, careful not to hover. "Rough week?" He gave a humorless laugh. "That's one way to put it. Emily hasn't let up since, you know." I nodded. Of course I knew. The words were etched into me. "You ruined my marriage." "She says you're trying to control everything," he continued, eyes fixed on the steam rising from his cup. "That you tell me what to do and I just obey. She thinks you've never cut the cord." The words stung, though he hadn't meant them cruelly. "David," I said softly, "have I ever told you what to do? Truly told you, not just offered advice?" He hesitated. "You've always guided me. That's who you are. I value it. But to Emily it feels like interference. She wants to build her own life with me, her own choices. She says she feels like a guest in her own marriage." I swallowed hard. "And what do you feel?" He looked up then, those brown eyes that had once begged me for extra allowance money. Now they were weary, searching. "I feel stuck. Like I'm standing between two fires, Mom. If I move closer to you, I get burned by her anger. If I side with her, I feel like I'm betraying you." My throat tightened. "Oh, sweetheart, I never wanted you to choose." "But that's exactly what she says I have to do," he whispered. His voice cracked, and suddenly he wasn't 35. He was 12 again, caught between friends fighting on the playground, begging them both to stop. I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. "Listen to me. You don't have to choose. I love you enough to step back. If my presence makes things worse, I'll give you space." He gripped my hand. "That's the thing. I don't want space. I want balance. I want both of you in my life." "Why is that so impossible?" His question hung in the air like smoke. The truth was, it was impossible. Not because of me, not because of him, but because Emily had drawn a line in the sand, and every step he took toward me was, in her eyes, a betrayal. "I'll try harder," I promised, though the words tasted like surrender. He nodded, sipping his coffee. For a few moments, the kitchen was quiet except for the tick of the clock. It should have been a peaceful moment, but instead, dread pressed against my chest. I changed the subject, asking about work, his latest project, and whether the leak in their bathroom had been fixed. He answered, but his voice carried the fatigue of a man who lived under constant siege. Before he left, he hugged me tighter than usual. "Don't give up on us, Mom, please." I kissed his cheek. "Never." As I watched his car disappear down the street, a thought pierced me. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a battle for control. And in that battle, David was the prize. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart heavy. Between two fires, my son was burning alive, and if I didn't find a way to uncover the truth, one of those flames would consume him completely. I whispered to the empty house, "Lord, give me strength, because I won't let her take him from me." The war had only begun, and I knew Emily was not finished. She had ammunition I couldn't yet see, and I had to be ready. It happened on a Wednesday evening, one of those dusky nights when the sky glows purple before surrendering to darkness. I had just stepped out of church choir practice, humming softly, when my phone buzzed. It was David. "Mom," he said, his voice low, cautious. "Emily wants to talk. Tonight. At our place." A chill ran through me. Invitations from Emily were rare and usually loaded. Still, I agreed. What kind of mother would I be if I refused? When I arrived, the condo felt colder than usual. The lights were dim, the curtains drawn tight. David sat on the couch, his jaw set, his eyes darting between me and the kitchen where Emily stood, arms folded. She looked like a queen waiting to pass judgment. "Margaret," she began, her tones syrupy but sharp, "thank you for coming. We need to clear the air." I set my purse down carefully, like the smallest movement could ignite the tension. "Of course. I don't want any misunderstandings." Emily smirked. "Oh, there's no misunderstanding. You're meddling. Always have, always will." Emily," David started, but she silenced him with a glance. "You think I don't notice?" she pressed on. "The whispers to David about our finances, the unsolicited advice about when we should start a family, even the way you stocked our pantry last month without asking. You're everywhere, Margaret. This isn't your marriage, it's mine." Her words stung, but beneath the sting was something else. Desperation. Her anger felt rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "Emily," I said calmly, though my hands trembled, "I only ever wanted to help. If I've crossed a line, I'm sorry, but—" "No," she snapped, her voice rising. "You don't get to play the saint. You're trying to turn David against me. You always make me the outsider." David shifted uncomfortably. "That's not true, Em. Mom never—" "Then explain this," she interrupted, reaching behind her. She slapped a stack of papers onto the coffee table. Bank statements, highlighted, circled in red. I frowned, confused. "What am I looking at?" Emily's eyes burned. "Advice you gave him, warnings you planted, telling him not to move forward with the condo because it was too risky. He repeats your words like gospel, Margaret. Do you know how that feels? To live in the shadow of your mother-in-law?" I turned to David, heart pounding. "You asked me to review these, didn't you? You said you wanted my opinion." He swallowed hard. I did. But Emily thinks—" "That's enough," she cut in, her voice shaking. "You always defend her, always." Her face flushed crimson, and for a moment I saw more than anger, I saw fear. Fear of losing him, fear of something unraveling. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Emily, why are you so afraid of me? What are you hiding?" The room went still, her eyes widened, just for a second before narrowing again. "Don't twist this. You're projecting. You're the problem." I felt Helen's words echo in my mind, her warning that Emily's rage was covering something deeper. The way Emily recoiled now, like a cornered animal, only confirmed it. David finally stood, his voice breaking. "Enough, both of you. This is tearing me apart." Emily's eyes shimmered with tears she refused to shed. She grabbed the bank statements, shoved them back into the folder, and stormed toward the bedroom. "If you don't put boundaries on your mother, David, you won't have a wife left to fight for." The door slammed. Silence fell. David sat heavily on the couch, rubbing his face. "I don't know what to do, Mom." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then let me. Something's not right here, David. I can feel it. She's hiding something, and until we know what it is, this will only get worse." He didn't respond, but he didn't push me away either. As I left that night, the echo of the slammed door followed me down the hallway. Emily thought she had silenced me with accusations, but all she had done was light a fire. I would find out what she was hiding. And when I did, no accusation in the world would protect her. The next morning, I met Helen at our favorite diner on the corner of Maple and Fifth. The place hadn't changed in 30 years. Red vinyl booths, chrome trim dulled by time, the faint scent of bacon grease that clung to the walls. It was comfort, pure and simple. Helen was already there, stirring her coffee with the impatience of a woman who had lived long enough to spot trouble before it walked through the door. When she saw my face, she sighed. "Well," she said, "you look like you've been through a war." I slid into the booth. "It feels that way." She leaned forward. "Tell me everything." And so I did. I told her about the bank statements, about Emily's accusation, about the slammed door that still echoed in my ears. I confessed the shame, the confusion, the gnawing suspicion that I wasn't just dealing with a jealous daughter-in-law, but with a woman who had something to hide. Helen listened, her brows knitting tighter with every detail. Finally, she set her spoon down with a decisive clink. "Margaret, you've got to stop blaming yourself. This isn't just about you giving too much advice. That girl," she jabbed her finger at the table for emphasis, "is using you as a scapegoat." "A scapegoat?" I repeated. "Yes. Think about it. If she convinces David that you're the problem, then she keeps him from looking too closely at her. It's classic deflection." I shook my head. "But what would she have to hide? She has everything, David. A good job, a nice home. Why would she risk all that?" Helen gave me that look only old friends can half pity, half exasperation. "Oh, Margaret, you're still giving people the benefit of the doubt. Some folks don't want peace, they want power. And if Emily feels threatened by you, she'll do whatever it takes to keep David under her thumb." I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl into cloudy patterns. "So what am I supposed to do? Sit back while she tears us apart?" "No," Helen said firmly, "but you can't fight her by playing her game. You need the truth. Cold, hard truth. Something that shows David exactly who she is without you saying a word." The thought made my stomach tighten. "And how am I supposed to find that?" Helen smirked. "Leave that part to me. I've got friends, Margaret, people who notice things. You'd be surprised what turns up when you start looking." I raised an eyebrow. "You're talking like we're planning a stakeout." She grinned. "If that's what it takes." Then, more gently, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You've spent your whole life protecting David. Don't stop now. Just be smart about it. Emily's counting on you to lose your temper, to prove her right. Don't give her that satisfaction." Her words hit home. I thought of the way Emily had smiled when she accused me, that glimmer of triumph in her eyes. She wanted me to lash out. She wanted David to see me as the meddling, overbearing mother she painted in her stories. But Helen was right. If I wanted to save my son, I had to be calm, steady, unshakable. I nodded slowly. "All right, I'll wait. I'll watch, and when the truth comes out," Helen's smile was fierce. "It'll be her turn to explain herself." We finished our breakfast in silence, each lost in thought. When I stepped out into the crisp morning air, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Emily thought she was winning, tightening the noose around my relationship with David, but she had underestimated one thing: a mother's resolve. As I walked to my car, I whispered a prayer under my breath. "Lord, if there's darkness here, bring it into the light. Protect David. Protect us all." And somewhere deep inside, I felt it, the shift from helpless victim to quiet warrior. Emily had drawn her battle lines. Now, I was ready to draw mine. The house was quiet that evening, too quiet. I'd been folding laundry, the rhythm of it soothing against the chaos in my head, when the phone rang. The old landline, not my cell, the number only a handful of people still used. I frowned, wiping my hands on a towel before picking up. "Hello?" A man's voice, low and hesitant, came through. "Mrs. Margaret?" "Yes, this is she." "This is John. John Miller. I work with David." I straightened, my heart kicking. "Oh, John. Yes, I remember him mentioning you. Is everything all right?" A pause. I could hear traffic in the background, maybe the hum of a car engine. "I shouldn't even be calling," he said slowly, "but I've seen some things about Emily." Every muscle in my body went tight. "What kinds of things?" Another pause, heavier this time. "Let's just say your daughter-in-law isn't being straight with David, and she's covering her tracks by turning him against you." I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white. "Do you have proof?" "I don't, not yet, but I've seen her with someone more than once, and not in a friendly way." My throat went dry. "Are you saying she's having an affair?" He exhaled sharply. "That's what it looks like. Look, I know this puts you in a hard spot. I just couldn't keep quiet anymore. David's a good guy. He deserves better than lies." I pressed my free hand against the counter, steadying myself. "Why are you telling me this, John? Why not tell David directly?" "Because if I'm wrong, I ruin a marriage. And if I'm right, I want him to hear it from someone who loves him, not a coworker. But if you pay attention, you'll see it yourself. She's getting sloppy." Before I could ask more, the line clicked dead. I stood there for a long moment, the dial tone buzzing in my ear, the weight of his words pressing down like a stone. Emily. An affair. Could it be true? I thought back her secretive phone calls, the sudden nights, working late, the tension that always crackled around her. The way she turned every problem back on me, like I was the smokescreen. A tremor of rage and heartbreak shot through me. All this time she'd been painting me as the villain, while hiding something far darker. I set the phone down carefully, my fingers trembling. The next morning, I told Helen. She leaned back in her chair at the diner, her eyes narrowing. I knew it. That girl's too defensive, too eager to point the finger. It always means there's something she doesn't want people looking at. But if I confront her now, I said, she'll twist it. She'll make me look paranoid. I need more than suspicion. Helen nodded. Then we get proof. John's right, she's sloppy. We just need to watch for the cracks. The word cracks sent a chill through me. I'd been feeling them for months, but now I knew they weren't in my imagination. They were the fracture lines of a truth straining to break free. That evening, I pulled out an old journal, the one I'd used to track David's milestones when he was little. I began jotting notes again, not of his first words or his school achievements, but of Emily's behavior. Dates, times, strange patterns. I felt like a detective in my own family, scribbling down clues with hands that still smelled faintly of flour and soap. I hated myself for it. I hated the secrecy, the suspicion. But I loved my son more than my own comfort. If she were betraying him, I would not let her succeed in dragging me down with her lies. As I closed the journal that night, a storm rumbled faintly in the distance. The air was thick, charged, as if the world itself knew what was coming. Emily thought she had me cornered. She thought she could frame me as the enemy, the meddling mother, but I wasn't the one she needed to fear. Because the truth has a way of dialing your number when you least expect it. And thanks to John's call, I was finally listening. The days after John's call felt like walking through fog with a lantern, shadows everywhere, shapes shifting, and the uneasy sense that something was following me. I tried to go about life as usual. Church meetings, tending the roses in my garden, volunteering at the library. But beneath every routine task, a restless urgency pulsed. Emily's face haunted me. Her perfect smile, her sharp words, the way she had cornered me in front of David. If what John said was true, that smile was nothing more than a mask hiding betrayal. I couldn't sit idle, so I began to watch. The first chance came on a Friday afternoon. David had mentioned Emily had late meetings at her office. My gut told me to drive by. I hated myself for it, snooping like some jealous schoolgirl, but love for my son overruled pride. Her office building sat downtown, glass and steel shining in the fading Sunday. I parked a few spaces away and waited. At 6:45, Emily emerged, not alone. A tall man in a gray suit walked beside her, their heads bent close. They weren't laughing like colleagues, nor did they keep the polite distance of acquaintances. Their shoulders brushed. When she leaned in, whispering something that made him grin, my stomach twisted. They walked together toward the parking lot. She didn't see me, but I saw her saw the way she glanced around like a thief, making sure the coast was clear. The man touched her elbow before they split, her car pulling out seconds later. I sat frozen, gripping the steering wheel. There it was, confirmation. Not concrete proof, but enough to scorch me with certainty. John hadn't been wrong. I drove home in silence, the world outside my windshield a blur. Images played in my mind. David's tired eyes, Emily's accusations, that man's hand on her arm. That night, I told Helen. She leaned back in her recliner, lips pursed tight. So you saw it yourself? I nodded. I did. But how do I tell David without sounding like I'm inventing this to get back at her? You don't, Helen said firmly. Not yet. You gather more. Let him see it himself. If you tell him now, she'll spin it, and he'll believe her. You know how deep her claws are. Her words hurt because they were true. David wanted to believe in his wife. He'd cling to any excuse she gave him. Unless I had undeniable evidence. So I began a quiet investigation. I noted her excuses: late meetings, sudden errands, phone calls she took in hushed tones. I wrote down times, dates, and even what she wore. It felt ridiculous at first, but the pattern grew clear. She wasn't careless. She was calculated. One evening, I saw her car parked at a restaurant across town. Through the window, I glimpsed her at a corner table laughing, leaning close, her hand brushing the man's. My breath caught, and my hands clenched around the steering wheel. A part of me wanted to storm inside, confront her in front of the whole world, to shout, "Here is your betrayal, David. Look at her." But another part, the wiser part, whispered, "Not yet. Wait. Protect your son with patience, not rage." I drove away, tears blurring the streetlights. At home, I sat with my journal again. I added every detail. My handwriting shook, but the words were steady. Emily is not who she pretends to be. Late that night, as I closed the journal, a strange calm settled over me. The fear I had felt for weeks began to shift into something sharper. Resolve. Emily thought she was clever, thought she could deflect her sins by painting me as the villain. She underestimated me. I had lived 60 years, buried a husband, and raised a son alone. I knew how to survive storms. And now, I knew this storm wasn't mine to endure. It was hers. I whispered into the dark, "The truth will come out, Emily. And when it does, you won't be able to hide behind me anymore." The night outside was silent, but inside me, a fire had been lit. The digging had only begun, and soon what I unearthed would change everything. It was Rachel who finally unraveled the knot. I hadn't expected her call. The younger sister of Emily had always been a quiet presence at family gatherings, smiling politely, helping with dishes, rarely speaking more than a handful of words. But one Tuesday evening, as the sun dipped low and painted my kitchen in shades of gold, the phone rang. "Mrs. Margaret?" Her voice trembled on the line. "Yes, Rachel. Is everything all right?" Silence, broken only by her shallow breathing. "No, it isn't. I can't keep watching what my sister is doing. You need to know the truth." My grip tightened around the receiver. "Go on." She hesitated, then spoke quickly, as though afraid she'd lose her nerve. "Emily is having an affair. It's been going on for months. The man's name is Thomas. He's married, too. She meets him after work, sometimes at restaurants, sometimes at a hotel off Route 9. The words hit me like ice water, shocking yet confirming what my gut had already screamed. "Rachel, are you sure?" "I've seen them," she whispered. "I confronted her once, told her to stop. She laughed in my face and said I'd regret crossing her. She's obsessed with keeping it hidden from David. And that's why she's blaming you for everything, so if he notices cracks in their marriage, she can point the finger at you." I pressed a hand to my chest, the weight of her confession nearly crushing me. My son's life, his marriage, his peace of mind held hostage by lies. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked gently. "Because I can't stand it anymore," Rachel said, her voice breaking. "You don't deserve what she's doing to you, and David doesn't deserve her betrayal." Tears blurred my vision. "Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for your courage." After the call ended, I sat in silence, the house pressing in around me. My suspicions, John's warning, my own eyes, they were all pieces of a puzzle, and Rachel had just snapped the final piece into place. Emily wasn't just manipulative. She was a liar, a cheater, a woman spinning a web so tangled she needed me as her scapegoat to keep it from collapsing. The next Sunday, the tension at dinner was unbearable. Emily was sweetness itself, asking if I wanted more salad, complimenting my earrings. But I saw through it now. I saw the cracks in her smile, the way her eyes flicked toward David when he wasn't looking, calculating every move. I studied her like a hawk, the way she touched his arm too deliberately, laughed too loudly at his mild jokes, made little digs at me disguised as humor. And David, poor David, sat there trying to juggle two worlds, his love for his wife and his loyalty to his mother. At one point, Emily excused herself to take a phone call. I followed quietly to the hallway, my footsteps muffled by the rug. Her voice was low, urgent. "No, I told you not to call me when I'm home. I can't get away tonight. He's here. Stop, just stop. You'll ruin everything." I froze. My blood boiled, but I forced myself back into the dining room before she returned, wearing her perfect smile. I caught Helen's eye across the table. She raised an eyebrow, sensing the storm in me. Later, in the kitchen, as we cleared plates, she whispered, "You found something, didn't you?" I nodded. "More than enough." But I need David to see it himself. Helen squeezed my arm. Then be patient. The truth always finds its way to the light. That night, lying in bed, I thought of the web Emily had woven, threads of lies strung tightly around David, around me, around the fragile idea of their marriage. But webs don't last forever. They glisten in the morning dew, beautiful and deadly, until a hand brushes them away. And I was ready. I whispered into the darkness, "Emily, your lies may have trapped us for now, but soon the web will break, and when it does, you'll be the one caught in it." The house was silent, but inside me, the storm was building. The web was unraveling one strand at a time. After Rachel's confession, I knew there was no turning back. The time for hoping this storm would pass on its own was gone. If Emily wanted to paint me as the villain, I needed undeniable truth evidence strong enough to shatter her mask in front of David. Rachel agreed to help. She was nervous, wringing her hands as we sat together in my living room, but determination burned in her eyes. "She's sloppy, Mrs. Margaret. If we watch closely, we'll catch her." So we made a plan. Rachel knew Emily's patterns when she left for yoga, when she claimed to be working late. We decided to track her movements. Not to spy out of malice, but to protect David from living inside a lie. The first night nearly broke me. Rachel and I sat in my car outside Emily's office, the air heavy with anticipation. Hours passed. At 7:30, Emily emerged, dressed too carefully for a late-night work session, her red dress hugging her like a secret. She wasn't alone. A man in a gray suit walked with her, his hand brushing hers. They laughed quietly, stealing glances like teenagers in love. My stomach clenched, rage and sorrow warring inside me. I wanted to storm out, drag David here, make him see. But Helen's words echoed, "Patience, let the truth reveal itself." Rachel snapped photos with trembling hands. "That's him," she whispered. "Thomas." We followed at a safe distance as they drove to a hotel on Route 9. Watching Emily disappear inside with that man felt like a knife twisting in my chest. My son's wife, the woman who accused me of ruining her marriage, was destroying it with her own hands. The second night brought more proof. Phone records Rachel had found. Emily had left her laptop unlocked during a visit. Dozens of late-night calls to the same number. Messages laced with secrecy. "Miss you already. Same place tomorrow?" Each discovery chipped away at the doubt I had carried for weeks. The guilt, the second-guessing gone. Now there was only clarity, hard and cold. The trap was almost ready. Rachel suggested confronting Emily privately, but I shook my head. If it's just me, she'll twist it. David has to see. He has to hear it from her own mouth. So we planned carefully. Rachel would invite Emily out for coffee, pretending she wanted sisterly advice. I would be nearby, recording from a distance. Rachel would steer the conversation, pressing Emily about Thomas. If Emily admitted anything, even a hint, it would be enough. The morning of the meeting, I prayed harder than I had in years. Lord, let the truth fall from her lips. Let David see what I see. At the cafe, my heart pounded as I set the recorder on, hidden in my purse. Through the window, I watched Rachel and Emily sit down. Rachel's nervous smile, Emily's confident tilt of her head. It was a scene I would never forget. Rachel began, her voice shaky. "Don't you think you should stop seeing Thomas? It's going too far." Emily's laugh was sharp, cruel. "Stop? Why would I stop? David is blind, and as long as I keep blaming his mother, he won't suspect a thing." Margaret practically hands me a cover on a silver platter. My breath caught. The words landed like thunder. Rachel pressed, "But if he finds out—" "He won't," Emily interrupted. "And if he does, I'll make sure he believes she pushed me into it. David always falls for the poor misunderstood wife act. Margaret's the perfect scapegoat." Ho! I gripped the table so hard my nails dug into the wood. There it was, the confession, the cruelty, the weapon she had forged out of my love for my son. The trap had worked. Rachel excused herself moments later, rushing outside to where I waited. Her face was pale, her hands shaking, but her eyes shone with relief. "We got it," she whispered. "We finally got it." I held her tightly, tears spilling down my cheeks. For weeks, I had been painted as the meddling mother, the villain tearing apart her son's marriage. But now, I held the truth in my hands, a truth that would tear away Emily's disguise and free David from her web. As we drove home, the recorder safe in my purse, I whispered to myself, "The war isn't over, but the tide has turned." Emily thought she had trapped me, but in the end, it was she who had stepped into the snare, and soon, David would see her for who she really was. David arrived at my house 2 days later, unannounced. His knock was heavy, urgent, the kind that makes your heart leap before you even open the door. When I let him in, his face was pale, his eyes shadowed. He looked like a man unraveling. "Mom," he said, running a hand through his hair. I don't know what to do anymore." I guided him to the kitchen and poured him coffee without asking. Mothers never stop offering small comforts, even when the world is crumbling. He sat at the table, shoulders hunched, staring at the cup like it might give him answers. "Emily won't stop," he whispered. "Every day, it's something new. She says you're trying to drive us apart, that you want me to yourself, that you're jealous of her." The words cut, though I had heard them before. "And do you believe that?" I asked quietly. He lifted his eyes to mine, tortured. "I don't want to, but she's relentless. She cries, she yells, she throws things. And when I defend you, she says I'm choosing you over her. I can't breathe in my own house anymore." I reached across the table, taking his trembling hands in mine. "Sweetheart, listen to me. This isn't about me. This is about her lies. She's hiding something, and she's using me as her shield. You're not crazy for feeling torn. It's exactly what she wants." His eyes searched mine, desperate. "But what if she's right? What if you are too involved? I keep replaying everything. Maybe I've let you influence me too much." The guilt in his voice pierced me deeper than any accusation. "David," I said firmly, "I have always loved you. I have always wanted what's best for you. That's not control, that's motherhood. But Emily, she's manipulating that love. She knows you're loyal to me, so she twists it into something ugly." He pulled his hands away, raking them through his hair. "I don't know who to believe anymore. I feel like I'm being split in half." My chest ached watching him. My strong, steady son, reduced to a man drowning between two currents. "Then believe what you see," I urged softly. "Not what either of us tells you. Look with your own eyes." He didn't answer. He just sat there, silent, his jaw clenched, his coffee untouched. That evening, after he left, I collapsed onto the couch, tears spilling freely. Helen came by, and I poured everything out: the fight at their condo, the endless accusations, David's torment. She listened, her face grim. "He's cracking," she said finally. "That woman is tearing him down piece by piece. If he doesn't see the truth soon, she'll break him completely." Her words echoed in my chest like a bell, and I knew she was right. The next day, David called me. His voice was flat, drained. "Mom, Emily wants me to move out for a while. Just until things calm down. She says it's the only way to save our marriage." My blood turned cold. "She wants you to leave your own home? She says it's your influence that's poisoning everything. If I create distance, she'll feel safe again." Safe. The word rang hollow. Emily wasn't seeking safety, she was seeking control. "David," I said, my voice shaking, "don't do this. Don't let her isolate you. That's how abusers work. They cut you off from everyone who loves you until you only hear their voice." There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing, ragged, like a man standing on a cliff. "I don't know, Mom," he said finally. "I'm so tired. I just want peace." When the call ended, I sat in the dark for hours, my heart pounding. He was slipping away, thread by thread. And I knew if Emily succeeded in turning him completely against me, she'd have full power over him. But I also knew something else. The truth was waiting. The trap Rachel and I had set, the recording in my drawer, it was my lifeline. Soon, David would hear Emily's own words. Soon, he would see. For now, though, all I could do was whisper into the quiet house. "Hold on, my son. Just hold on a little longer. The lies won't win forever." And as tears blurred my vision, I promised myself, Emily might be tearing him apart, but I would fight with everything I had to put him back together. The moment arrived sooner than I expected. It was a Saturday evening when David came by again, his face a map of sleepless nights. He sat down at my kitchen table staring at his hands. "Mom, I can't keep living like this. Emily says if I don't cut ties with you, she'll leave. I don't know what to do." My heart clenched. This was the breaking point, the moment she had been pushing toward all along. I rose, walked to the drawer where I kept the recorder, and placed it gently on the table. My hands shook, but my voice was steady. "Then you need to hear the truth, David. Not from me, not from her own mouth." His brows knitted. "What is this?" I pressed play. The room filled with Emily's voice, sharp and mocking. Why would I stop? David is blind, and as long as I keep blaming his mother, he won't suspect a thing. Margaret practically hands me a cover on a silver platter. David's eyes widened. His hand froze on the table. Then came Rachel's voice, trembling. "But if he finds out," Emily's reply, cruel and certain. "He won't, and if he does, I'll make sure he believes she pushed me into it." David always falls for the poor, misunderstood wife act. Margaret's the perfect scapegoat. The silence that followed was deafening. David's face drained of color. He looked at me, then at the recorder, then back again as though the ground beneath him had shifted. "No," he whispered. "No, this can't be real." "It is," I said softly. "Rachel was brave enough to help me get this. I didn't want to believe it either, but I couldn't let her destroy you and us without proof." "Oh." He pushed his chair back, standing abruptly. He paced the kitchen, hands gripping his hair. She used me. She used you. All this time I thought you were the problem, that maybe you were interfering too much, but—" His voice cracked. "She was the one. She's been lying to me." Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to stay calm. "I never wanted to show you like this, but you needed to know. I could take the blame for the rest of my life if it protected you, but this— David, this was killing you." He collapsed back into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "I don't know what to do. I married a woman who despises me enough to twist my own mother into the villain. How do I even face her now?" I reached across the table, resting my hand on his trembling arm. "With strength, with truth, you deserve better than a life built on lies." We sat there in silence for a long while, the recorder still between us, like a final witness to the storm. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet but clearer than I had seen in months. "She said she'd leave if I didn't cut you off," he murmured. "But now, I think maybe letting her leave is the only way forward." The words broke me open and healed me all at once. My son, my sweet boy who had been torn apart, was finally seeing through the fog. "Whatever happens," I said, squeezing his hand, "you won't go through it alone. You'll have me, always." Later that night, after he left, I sat on the porch with Helen. She listened as I told her what had happened, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Well," she said, sipping her tea, "the truth always finds its way to the light, and Emily just handed you a lantern." I nodded, gazing at the stars. Relief mingled with sorrow. The road ahead would be painful confrontations, decisions, the crumbling of a marriage David had once believed in. But at least now, the battle wasn't against shadows. The lies were exposed. And deep inside, beneath the grief, I felt something stir. Hope. Hope that my son could rebuild. Hope that the bond between us could heal. Hope that Emily's web was finally torn apart. I whispered into the night, "Thank you, Lord, for showing us the truth. Give him courage now. He'll need it more than ever." The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if they too were witnesses to the moment the darkness began to lift. The confrontation came on a rainy evening, thunder rolling like a drumbeat of fate. David had called Emily to sit down and talk, really talk. He wanted me nowhere near it, and I understood. This was his battle now, and though every nerve in me wanted to shield him, I had to let him stand on his own feet. Helen sat with me at my kitchen table that night, the storm outside mirroring the storm in my chest. "He'll be all right," she said, though her eyes betrayed the worry she felt. "He's seen the truth. That's half the war won." I nodded, clutching my mug of tea, whispering silent prayers for strength for him, not me. Meanwhile, across town, David faced Emily. He told me later how it unfolded. She sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, pretending to be calm. "What's this about? You've been brooding for days." David stood, hands and fists at his sides. "I know about Thomas." Her head jerked up, eyes wide before narrowing into practiced denial. "What are you talking about?" "I've heard you. he said firmly. On recording. You admitted everything, your affair, your lies, using my mother as your shield. Don't bother denying it. Her mask slipped, just for a second, then snapped back into place. She's lying. Margaret's manipulating you, twisting everything. You know she hates me. Stop. His voice cracked like thunder. Don't you dare say her name again. The woman you call a manipulator is the only person who's ever stood by me without condition. And you, he pointed at her, his whole body trembling. You've been betraying me all along. Emily laughed bitterly, but there was fear in her eyes. So what? You think you'll be happier clinging to your mother at 60? She'll die, David, and then what? You'll be alone. I'd rather be alone, he said, voice breaking, than chained to a lie. Silence. The rain lashed the windows, a cruel soundtrack to the end of a marriage. Emily finally dropped the pretense. Fine, she spat. If you want her, keep her, but don't come crawling back when you realize I was the best thing that ever happened to you. She snatched her coat and stormed out, the door slamming so hard the frame rattled. When David told me this later, he looked hollowed out, like a man who had survived a battlefield, but left part of himself behind. It's over, Mom, he whispered, sitting at my table with rain still clinging to his hair. She's gone. I reached for his hand. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. He shook his head. Don't be. She made her choice. I feel like a fool. How could I not see it? How did I let her twist me against you? Tears stung my eyes. Because you loved her. Love makes us blind sometimes. That's not weakness, David. That's being human. He bowed his head, shoulders shaking. For the first time in years, I pulled him into my arms like I had when he was a boy. He clung to me, grief spilling out, and I held him until the storm inside him quieted. Helen, watching from her chair, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Well, she said softly, it takes a strong man to cut himself free from a web like that. Don't call yourself a fool, David. Call yourself free. Free. The word echoed through the kitchen. Later that night, after he'd gone to lie down in the guest room, I sat alone in the dark, relief mingled with sorrow. My son had faced the truth, but the cost was a broken marriage, shattered dreams, and wounds that would take time to heal. Yet I knew this: better a painful truth than a comfortable lie. Emily's betrayal had destroyed one life chapter, yes, but it had also cracked open space for something new, for honesty, for healing, for freedom. I whispered into the quiet house, "Thank you, Lord, for giving him the strength. Help him rebuild, help us both." The storm outside began to ease, the rain softening to a drizzle, and in that gentler rhythm, I heard a promise. Storms pass, but the air they leave behind is cleaner, fresher. Emily was gone. The marriage was shattered. But from the broken pieces, something stronger could be built between me and my son, and for his future yet to come. The morning after Emily left, the world seemed strangely still. No storm clouds, no thunder, just soft sunlight filtering through the curtains, painting gentle gold across my kitchen table. David shuffled in wearing one of his old college sweatshirts, the one he used to leave crumpled on the floor of his bedroom. He looked older than his 35 years, but lighter too, as if a heavy weight had finally been cut loose. "Coffee?" I asked. Some habits never fade. He smiled faintly, weary but sincere. "Yeah. Please." As I poured, I studied him. This was the son I knew, the boy who once built forts from sofa cushions, the young man who'd carried me to the car when I sprained my ankle, the engineer who called me with pride after his first promotion. For months, Emily had dimmed that light, pressing him into shadows. Now, with her gone, I could see the faint glow returning. We sat in silence for a while, sipping. Sometimes silence is the only language grief understands. Finally, he spoke. "I feel empty," he admitted, "like part of me's been ripped out, but at the same time I feel free. Does that make sense?" I nodded. "It makes perfect sense. Endings always feel like both, pain and relief tangled together." He rubbed his face. "I keep thinking about how close I came to cutting you out, how I believed her lies. Mom, I don't know how to forgive myself for that." I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. "David, listen to me. You don't need to earn my forgiveness. You already have it. I know what love can do to a person. It blinds, it binds, it makes fools of the best of us. I never blamed you. Tears shimmered in his eyes. But I blamed you. I hurt you. You were hurting, I said softly. And she used that hurt to turn you against me. But you found your way back. That's what matters. His grip tightened around my hand, strong and desperate. I don't ever want to lose us again. You won't, I promised, not as long as we keep the truth between us. Lies built that wall, truth tore it down. We sat like that for a long time, holding hands across the table like two survivors clinging to the same raft. Later, Helen stopped by, arms full of groceries. If we're going to start fresh, she declared, we need a proper meal. None of this cold pizza nonsense you two have been living on. She bustled around the kitchen like a general commanding troops, making David laugh for the first time in weeks. The sound filled the house, rich and healing. As we ate together that evening, I realized how long it had been since laughter felt at home here. Emily had drained joy from the air, replacing it with suspicion and fear. Now, little by little, we were reclaiming it. After dinner, David lingered on the porch with me. The sky was streaked with pink and lavender, the kind of quiet beauty that makes you believe in second chances. I don't know what comes next, he admitted. Divorce lawyers, papers, maybe a lot of messy conversations. But I do know this, I won't let anyone turn me against you again. You're my mother. That bond doesn't break. My throat tightened. And you're my son, my only son. Nothing could make me stop loving you. He leaned his head against my shoulder, just as he had when he was a boy. For a moment, time folded in on itself, and I felt the same fierce love I had felt the first time I held him in my arms. I'll be all right, he murmured, because I've got you. And I knew he was right. In the weeks that followed, healing began. Slowly, awkwardly. Some days were heavy with grief, others light with relief. But through it all, we faced it together. He found a counselor. I found peace in prayer and gardening. Helen kept us both laughing when shadows grew long. The marriage was gone, but the bond between mother and son, once cracked and strained, was stronger than ever. Fire had tested it, but fire had not destroyed it. One Sunday, as David helped me carry fresh pies to church, he turned to me and said, "You know, Mom, Emily was wrong about one thing. You didn't ruin my marriage. She did. But you saved me from staying trapped in it." I know. Tears burned my eyes, but I smiled. That's what mothers do, sweetheart. We save our children, even when they don't know they need saving. The church bells rang, clear and bright, and I felt a strange sense of completion. The storm had passed, the web had broken, and the truth, harsh, painful, but pure, had set us free. As we walked inside together, I whispered a silent prayer. Thank you for giving us back to each other. And in that moment, with my son by my side, I knew we had survived the darkest chapter of our lives. What lay ahead was uncertain, yes, but it was ours to write together, in the light of truth. Life after Emily was not easy for David, but it was honest. The lies, the manipulation, the endless accusations gone. What remained was the quiet work of rebuilding, his trust in himself, his faith in family, and the bond between us that no one could ever sever again. I often catch him sitting on the porch with me, sipping coffee, both of us watching the sun set behind the trees. No shouting, no shadows lurking behind kind smiles, just peace. And peace, I've learned, is the sweetest victory of all. Emily's betrayal could have destroyed us. For a while it nearly did. But the truth has a way of rising, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. She wanted me to be the scapegoat, the villain of her story. Instead, she revealed herself. What she left behind was not ruin, but renewal. David and I have found our way back to each other. Stronger, closer, grateful. Because sometimes, family betrayal isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of a new story, one written in honesty, forgiveness, and love. If this story touched you, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do, or had someone twist the truth to make you the villain? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe stories like this matter, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next chapter. Your support keeps these stories alive. Remember, betrayal hurts, but truth always heals.